We'll spend a few minutes here talking about movement variability and especially how that relates to the developmental athlete or an athlete that we just got on campus. Okay, so movement variability is the natural variations that occur within a task from repetition to repetition. And it's extremely important to have the ability or the tool set, maybe a better way to put it, to have some wide varieties in how to complete a task or a problem for an elite athlete, an advanced athlete that's been through a lot of different situations. For a developmental athlete, us as coaches, when we're designing training plans, when we're designing practice, or problems for our athletes to solve from a movement perspective, it's important for us to be simple. Okay, we don't want them to have a lot of variance between repetitions. We want them to work on patterns. We want them to do the exercise correctly over and over and over at a high rate of success so that they can actually get the pattern, and then we can later progress to some more advanced problems and then a little bit higher range of variability or movement variability, if you will. Okay, if you look at movement variability, it kind of goes along with the complexity of the problem. Okay, so if we have a very simple problem, let's just take a ground ball for a youth athlete coming right at me. Oftentimes that ground ball is not going to have some crazy spin. It's not going to have a lot of bounce. It's going to be a slow roller. And the majority of times the athlete's not going to have the ability to have a wide range moving side to side or even backwards or forwards. Okay, so the ball coming at me is going to be fielded somewhat in a simple manner. Athlete may set their feet and they may alligator, bring it to the belly button, or push through the ball. So that may be a very simple problem and has low movement variability. So when I'm teaching that athlete to perform that skill, I want them to repeat and have success fielding that ground ball over and over the same way. Same thing holds true for a squat. If we're teaching that same athlete a squat, I want them to drive in the pattern over and over and over. Not with a lot of weight, not with a lot of intensity, but I want them to feel that pattern so that when we do increase the complexity of the problem, add weight, add velocity, or intent, they're going to have the ability to solve that problem. Okay? So, as the complexity of the problem increases, it can be advantageous for us if we go up the pyramid to have a little bit more range or tool set to solve that problem. Let's go back to that same infielder. Okay, let's not think about a youth infielder, but let's think about a Major League Baseball player now. Okay, as that ball's coming at me, now I may have to not just field the ball midline, I may have to field it off center. I may have to go through the ball. I may have to come in, throw on the run. From a throwing perspective, that same youth athlete that we talked about fielding it midline and doing the same skill over and over, we're going to teach to square up, point the shoulder, and then throw to first base. That elite level shortstop, that professional shortstop, fields the ball off midline. They may very well throw up top, 3/4. They may come underneath. So that's an example of movement variability. As the problem increases, the speed at which the ball is coming at me, the hop, the speed of the base runner, the problem has increased in complexity. I'm going to have a wider skill set to complete that problem and successfully complete that problem. Okay, so when we're thinking about the developmental athlete, we think about it, and we've talked about this in previous conversations. We think about the white level athlete. Okay, this is just for us here at Baylor, but our white level athletes are developmental. Okay, so we are teaching them how to train and how to move well in space, free from injury. As they go up the pyramid, we're going to have to increase complexity of the problem within training to make sure that they're safe within the sport, and then we're also going to have to be okay with a little bit of movement variability. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to be shifting in squats. That doesn't mean we're going to be putting them in bad situations. But increasing the complexity of the problem is going to come along with that athlete having to have the ability to find different ways and having the autonomy to solve that problem a little bit different. That's where a little bit of feel comes in and a little bit of style, if you will. Okay? So, going back to the developmental athlete, when I'm thinking about programming, when I'm thinking about my coaching cues, my teaching, for the white level athlete or the developmental group, a couple things I'm going to keep in mind. I want to be consistent. Everything we do, I want the movement to be the same over and over and over. Oftentimes this can be done by changing the constraints, the task, the environment that I may be in, and I'm basically putting them in a situation where they can repeat the movement over and over and over at a high rate of success. I want them to have success and to create a feel for what correct technique feels like. Mentioned, I want to repeat the problem. That's kind of one of the constraints that we kind of talk about. I want to repeat problems so they have the ability to be consistent. If I'm always changing the scenario, the environment that's going in, the tempo of the situation, that's not the same problem. It's increased in complexity already just because of the environment that I put the athlete in. So then they cannot be consistent and drive that pattern home. The next thing is I want to work to correct imbalances as early as possible. This is done through early analysis, through a movement screen, conversations with athletic medicine and our athletic training team. Okay, it's through conversations during the recruiting process, bringing them in, knowing their injury history, knowing their training history, and then always having a great coach's eye to know what we're doing with them and how they're advancing through the program. And then, just like in previous videos, we want to provide specific feedback. That feedback needs to be ultra prescriptive and dedicated just to them. And anytime we give specific feedback, we need to be close to them. We can't just be shotgunning feedback and expect to have behavior changes for the good or the bad. Okay, so in summary, movement variability is just the natural variation between rep to rep of it being slightly different. And it occurs as the complexity of a problem goes up. You're going to have slight changes in this. That's due to the velocity of the problem, the how difficult the situation is, or an environmental change. Okay, we want, when we're training the developmental athlete, everything to be under control. We want them to repeat the pattern over and over so they feel comfortable in it and so that they can progress up our pyramid toward the very end and the black level. So, thank you.